Hi kids! Good morning! How are you today? Are you happy today? Oh, let me see your smiles. Wow, I'm very glad to see you all. By the way, I am Auntie Ruth and I will gonna share with you a new story. But before we will proceed to our next story, let's have a quick recap of the last story that we had. Last time, we talked about King David. King David wanted to build a house for Jehovah. But Jehovah told him that it would not be he who will build him a house, but his son Solomon. Today, we will talk about his son Solomon. God called Solomon. When the great King David was very old and knew that he would soon die, he gathered all the leaders of the children of Israel. And he told them that Jehovah had chosen his son Solomon to rule over Israel and to build the house of God, the temple. Before he died, he gave his throne to Solomon, and he prepared a very great amount of materials for the temple, like gold, silver, brass, iron, precious stones, and wood, and he passed them to Solomon. Then he charged Solomon to build the house. He said, "Be strong and be bold, and do it. Do not be afraid or dismayed, for Jehovah God is with you. He will never fail you nor forsake you, until the completion of all the service for the house of God." However, Solomon was still young and tender, and the work was very great, because the palace was not for man, but for Jehovah, and it must be exceedingly great in honor and fame. As king, Solomon loved Jehovah, and he followed the pattern of his father David by offering sacrifices and burnt offerings in high places. At Gibeon, a very high place, Solomon offered 1,000 burnt offerings. That night, Jehovah appeared to Solomon in a dream, and he told him to ask whatever he desired in his heart. Do you know what Solomon asked from Jehovah? Solomon asked an understanding heart. He said, "Ah, now Jehovah, you have made your servant king in place of my father David, though I am still a little child. I do not know how to handle your people, because they are so many. Give therefore your servant an understanding heart, that I may judge your people, and may discern between good and evil." Sapagkat si Solomon ay bata pa, nang siya ay pinili na maging hari kapalit ng kanyang ama na si David, hindi niya alam kung paano mamuno sa Israel. Kaya, hiningi niya kay Jehovah ang karunungan at mapag-unawa na puso upang mamuno sa Israel at upang mabatid ang mabuti sa masama. The Lord was very pleased of Solomon's request. And because of this, Jehovah gave Solomon more than what he asked for. Jehovah gave Solomon a wise and understanding heart, like no one ever had before him and after him. He also gave Solomon riches and glory, and he promised Solomon a long life if he would walk the ways of the Lord just like his father David did. The Bible says that God gave Solomon wise and very much understanding and largeness of heart, just like the sand on the seashore. That's why Solomon became wiser than all men, and he became famous among all the surrounding nations. Sapagkat binigyan ni Jehovah si Solomon ng karunungan, siya ang pinakamarunong na tao, at siya ay naging kilala sa mga bansa na nakapalibot sa kanya. During his lifetime, or sa buong buhay ni Solomon, he spoke 3,000 proverbs or words of wisdom, 1,005 songs, and he wrote 3 books, Ecclesiastes, Song of Songs, and most of the book of Proverbs. He also discoursed about every tree and plant, from the cedar in Lebanon to the hyssop. He spoke also about animals, creeping things, and fish. Because of Solomon's wisdom, many kings from different places came to see Solomon and wanted to hear his wisdom. And one of them was the Queen of Sheba. The Queen of Sheba came to see Solomon, and she tested Solomon with many hard questions. So yung Queen of Sheba, pumunta siya kay Solomon at tinanong niya si Solomon ng napakaraming mahihirap na mga tanong. But Solomon was able to answer all of them. Nasagot naman ni Solomon lahat ng mga tanong ng Queen of Sheba. That's why the Queen of Sheba was overwhelmed and was in awe. So namangha yung Queen of Sheba. And she said, "Indeed, the word concerning your deeds and wisdom are true. But I did not believe them until I came and my own eyes saw. And indeed, the report that I heard was just half. Your wisdom and prosperity far exceed the things that I heard. Happy are your men, happy are your servants. Blessed be Jehovah. Because Jehovah loved Israel forever, He has made you king to execute justice and righteousness." So yun yung sinabi ng Queen of Sheba kay Haring Solomon. Solomon's wisdom was also seen in how he judged the people of Israel. Isang araw, may dalawang ina na pumunta kay Solomon. Silang dalawa ay nag-aagawan sa isang sanggol. Ikwinento ng unang ina ang buong pangyayari. Sabi niya, silang dalawa lamang ang nakatira sa iisang bahay at bawat isa sa kanila ay may sanggol na 3 araw lamang ang agwat. Sa gabi, ang anak ng pangalawang ina ay namatay sapagkat hindi niya ito sinadyang mahigaan habang siya ay natulog. Dahil dito, pinagpalit niya ang kanyang patay na anak dun sa isang ina. Nang gumising na ang ina, nakita niya na patay na ang kanyang anak. Ngunit, nang lumapit siya, napansin niya na hindi pala niya to anak. Nang matapos na magkwento ang unang ina, tumanggi yung pangalawang ina. Sabi niya, "Hindi yan totoo. Akin yung buhay na bata. Yung patay ang sayo." Sabi ng isa, "Hindi, yung buhay yung aking anak." Patuloy silang nagtatalo at pabalik-balik ang kanilang pagtatalo sa harap ng hari, hanggat nakapagdesisyon ang hari. Sabi niya, "Bawat isa sa inyo ay umangkin na ina ng bata. Bigyan mo ako ng espada." Binigyan siya ng espada ng kanyang mga tauhan. Sabi niya, "Hatiin ang bata at ibigay ang kalahati sa isang ina at ang kalahati sa isa." Ngunit, ang tunay na ina ay naawa sa bata at ayaw niya itong mamatay, kaya agad siyang nagsalita. "Oh, mahal na hari, ibigay niyo na lang po ang sangkol sa kanya at huwag niyo na lang po itong hatiin." Ang hindi tunay na ina ay walang pakialam at nais na hatiin ang bata. Dahil dito, nalaman na ni Haring Solomon kung sino ang tunay na ina at inutusan niya ang kanyang mga tauhan na ibigay ang bata sa kanyang ina. When all the children of Israel heard of Solomon's judgment, they feared the great king, because they see that his wisdom was from God. During his reign, the greatest achievement that Solomon accomplished was the construction of the house of Jehovah, which was later called Solomon's Temple. There were hundreds of thousands of men who worked for the house of Jehovah. After 7 years, the house was completed in all its parts according to its specifications. When the temple was completed, all the furnishings were brought in, and the ark of Jehovah was brought into the house. The singers, the trumpeters, and the ministers were singing and thanking to Jehovah. Because of this, the glory of Jehovah filled the temple to such an extent that the priests could not even stand to minister. The dwelling place that God had longed for and had spoken of to Moses 500 years earlier had finally been built. God could now live among his people and speak to them from his house. The glory of Jehovah filled the house. That would be all for our story this morning. Thank you.